Hi, this is David with David's Tutorials, and today I'm going to show you how to make yam strings. I can hear you now. What? What in the world are yam strings? Yam strings, as near as I can tell, are my own invention. Essentially, they're a very fine-cut version of sweet potato fries. They are an outstanding side dish, as long as you eat them while they're fresh. In this video, I'm going to tell you how I got this idea, how I make them, and what I've learned along the way so that you can avoid making some of those same mistakes. If you have eaten out in restaurants at all over the last few years, chances are good that you have come across sweet potato fries on the menu, offered as a side dish, perhaps in place of something like French fries. Maybe you've even tried them, and you liked them. I did, and I do. Totally separate from this, my wife and I have found that we really like spiral sliced vegetables. Vegetables such as zucchini, which when spiral sliced become zoodles, which make an excellent substitute for pasta because they are not infested with carbohydrates or laden with gluten. If spiralizing vegetables is something that interests you and you'd like to know more about it, let us know down in the comments and I'll see about making a video about that sometime in the future. Back about a year ago, I was thinking about those sweet potato fries and wondering if I could make them myself. Right about that time, my wife had our spiralizer out and she was using it, and I thought, why couldn't I use that spiralizer on sweet potatoes and make a version of sweet potato fries that way? So I tried it. I took a sweet potato and I used the spiralizer to slice it into strings. I fried them up and the results were just outstanding. But I knew I could probably do it even better than that, so I tried it several different ways using several different techniques. What I'm about to show you in this video is the result of where I am today using these different techniques. Now, there are several other ways that I'm sure would be a little bit better, and I want to try a few of those. I'll tell you about those near the end of the video. I know there are some techniques that I want to try, and if there are some techniques that you know about or discover as you try them yourself, please get in the comment section down below and let us know what those are. The materials and equipment you'll need to make yam strings include, first, a sweet potato, maybe even two of them. You'll need a spiral slicer. You'll need a deep fryer. I use a pot, a pretty deep pot, but it's still just a pot on the stove. Of course, you'll need enough frying oil to immerse the batches of yam strings that you make. You'll need a draining pan, perhaps a rack in it, line it with paper towels. You'll need some long-handled tools to put the batches into and get it out of the frying oil. You'll also need a cooking thermometer able to go up to over 400 degrees and register that temperature, and you're probably going to want to have a serving platter. Again, line that one with paper towels. To get started, first begin heating your oil. As I said, I use mine in a deep pot right on the top of my stove. In this video, the oil I will use is bacon grease. I got this bacon grease as a runoff from bacon. Now, I've made a video about baking bacon, and if you haven't ever tried that, I promise it's going to be the best bacon you ever had in your life. I put a link to that video in my description down below. The thing that I found out about bacon grease, however, is that it has a pretty low smoke point, and perhaps in future batches of yam strings, I'm going to try using something other than bacon grease. The goal on heating up the oil that you're going to cook in is you want it between 300 and 375 degrees, with 360 degrees being about right. Whatever oil you use, before you use it, please be sure to go online and look up the smoke point of that kind of oil. You do not want to heat your oil above the smoke point, at least not very much, because it will take on a kind of a burned flavor and that will detract from the flavor of your finished product. While you're heating your oil, it's time to spiralize that sweet potato. What you need to do is first wash the potato and then cut a little bit off the end so that it will mount properly on the prongs of the spiralizer. There's a link to a spiralizer in the description down below in case you need to buy one of those. While you're working on spiralizing your sweet potato, be sure to keep an eye on the temperature of the oil. You do not want it to overheat. I'm looking for between 350 and 375 degrees, and it looks like that's right exactly where it is right now. Once your oil is up to temperature, it's time to fry those yam strings. Not going to do too many at once because we don't want the fat to get cooled down. Have to turn on the fan here. Now what we're looking for in the yam strings is for them to get just a little bit crispy. It also helps to have the right tools, and for retrieving yam strings from the fat, this is the right tool. Now as soon as they come out of the fat, they're going to be kind of in a bird's nest conformation, and I'm going to take this little bird's nest of fried yam strings, put it on a grate, and as soon as that's done, while it's still hot, I'm going to salt it with a little bit of natural sea salt. I'm not hurrying to get new strings in the grease because I want it to heat back up to 350 to 375. It's down to 315 right now, so I'm going to let it go for a little bit more. Okay, we can see it's up to 350 and above. Time to put in batch number 2. Now batch number 1 was not quite as good as I thought it should have been. First batches of anything are never as good. So let's see about this second batch. Now the reason we let the grease heat up, see how it's bubbling up here? The reason we let the grease heat back up is that if you put the yam strings in while the grease is cooler than 350 degrees, the bubbles will get a lot more ferocious and they'll start overflowing the pot. That's what happened the very first time I tried this. The grease overflowed the pot, it ran down to the burner here, and it cooked onto the pot, and that's what caused me to have to make that video that I have up earlier about how to remove burned on grease from a stainless steel pot. I'm going to let this batch cook a little bit more than the previous batch. The first batch is good, but it's still a little bit soft, so it's good, but it could be crispier. This is much better, much better. Let's retrieve the yam strings from the grease and see what they're like. They're still a little bit soft while they're hot in the grease, and that's when you can kind of shape them into more of a bird's nest here. Yep, you can see the difference in the color right now. So put them there. I'm going to shape them. I'm going to let this heat back up. I'm going to salt this batch of yam strings, and this is going to be a much better batch, I can tell by the color. We're going to let the grease heat up, and we're going to do this entire bowl full of yam strings, taking the yam strings after they're cooled a little bit and putting them over on the saving platter there, making more room on the draining platter. Let me show you this while it's cooking. Temperature while it's cooking is only about 250 degrees, so it's gone down. You can tell when they get a little bit more done because the bubbling goes away. What happens is you're cooking all the water out of it, and after the water gets cooked out, that's when it starts to get crispy. But you don't want to let it get too crispy, it'll get too brown. So watch it carefully, and when the bubbles start to decrease, then you test it for doneness. In the later batches of yam strings, I have found that you're going to get more and more bubbles in that oil. So in those later batches, you may want to ease the string batches into the oil a little bit at a time to ensure the bubbles don't foam up and go over the edge of your cooker. After you've cooked all of your batches, it's time to serve them up. Here you can see some of the batches on the serving platter, and you can see what I mean when I refer to them as bird's nests. And here they are on a serving plate, ready to eat. Now you may be wondering, what are those things I was talking about earlier in the video when I said I wanted to try some other techniques? Well, the first thing I'm going to try next time is a different kind of oil. Since making this batch of yam strings, I have learned that the smoke point of bacon grease is at about 325 degrees, which is significantly less than the 360 degree ideal temperature for cooking. So next time, I'm going to probably try either beef lard, which has a smoke point of 400 degrees, or if I can find it and it's affordable, cold pressed peanut oil, which has a smoke point of 450 degrees. So, are you going to try these yam strings? As I said a little bit earlier, I've made these maybe half a dozen times now, and I really like them. But are they any good? Do other people like them? Well, let me put it to you this way. My son, who has pretty much disliked all kinds of sweet potatoes for more than 30 years, I asked him to try some of these things. He came back for thirds. Enough said. That's it for this video, everybody. I hope you really enjoy these yummy, tasty yam strings. Be sure to give us a great big old thumbs up to let other people and the YouTube folks know that you thought this video was helpful. Share it with others, especially those who you think might like yam strings. And don't forget to click that subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified whenever we post another great tutorial here on David's Tutorials.